Hi, it's Chris Watkin here, and I am with Sean Newman, who set up his own self-employed estate agency following the last property crash in 2008-2009. Welcome, Sean, and thank you for being with me today.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Pleasure, pleasure. The purpose of this video is to talk about the self-employed agent model from the point of view of the, I know strictly not speaking the employer, but from the boss's point of view. I know that there are plenty of videos, and we're going to be doing our own in a week's time, talking about it from the employee's point of view. Basically, the main questions fall into kind of main categories of the tax position, how the office is set up, commission splits, like that. So what I'd like to do is ask various different questions to you, and then once we've done the questions, we can move into the advantages and the disadvantages from both points of view, from both sides. Is that okay?
Yes, fine. Yeah, far away.
Good stuff. Okay. Why did you set up your self-employed agency in the first place in 08-09? I think that's important to get a context.
Yeah, mainly because I'd been going to America to go to the National Association of Realtors conference every year for a whole load of years. And it just seemed crazy how we were so different and they were so far ahead. And then I went to South Africa and I went to Australia. And then I realized that this is the model they have in the rest of the world. And it seemed a far better model for various reasons, which we'll come to later. But obviously in 2008, we had that global financial crash, and our income literally halved. And we were stuck with lots of very high salaries and fixed costs because we wanted to attract the best agents. And we thought, well, we've got to pay the best salaries. And we always offered people more money to come and join us. We wanted to give our clients the best service, have the best standards. And obviously you pay the best wages to attract the best talent. And then we were stuck, and our income and our literally halved overnight. And we had to go through lots of cost-cutting processes and redundancies, and lots of things we had to address. So we didn't do anything straight away, but I thought I never want to be in that position again, where if the market changes or transaction numbers drop, that we're not stuck with high salaries. And we wanted to have people paid on results. In fairness, a lot of our agents were paid fairly low salaries, and a high majority was commission. But we still had high fixed costs, and it was just a way of addressing. It wasn't in 2009, 2010, we investigated this further and looked at different options, and then decided this was the way forward.
So how did you approach the subject with your employed staff about moving to the self-employed model?
Yeah, so first of all, we didn't force anyone to this model. We did it on a consultation process, and everyone could clearly see what they'd earned in the last year. And we came up with a proposal and said, would you consider this option on a self-employed basis where we pay you this percentage of the money you bring in? And we were paying a high, if we look, and I can't remember the figures, but let's just say we looked at our salaries as a percentage of our income and say it was 25%. Every employer might need to have a look at that, see what the salaries are. And obviously we put a proposal, and I think probably offered 35% to the agent and said, look, you would pay you 35% of the income that you generate. And everyone could look at their salary from the previous year and then work out or what they brought in the last year, were 30 and 35%, would they be worse off or would they be better off? And everyone would be better off on this model, not only because they would earn more, but they would also be some tax savings, and because they could offset some of their costs, tax as well. So and there was other benefits.
Okay, so are we talking about valuers and negs and admin? Let's do resi sales first. Who did you offer this to, and who did you not offer it to in terms of job role?
So it's just really sales, negotiators, valuers for most companies. That would be the fee earners,
okay.
Not admin.
But in most agents, the negotiator is the person in the office, and the valuer is the fancy pants driving around, not doing much work, but great at converting. Nothing against valuing. I used to be a valuer myself. How did the fees get split between the two? I mean, let's be honest. valuers are very good at converting, but not very good at generating the business, and negotiators are good at potentially negotiating the deal, but are they only good at getting the business? Did you combine the role of neg and valuer, or how did that work?
So this has changed over the years, and I'll come back to how it is now. At the time, we realized that the fee earners were the people that went out and won the listing, and they're the people that we wanted to track. We wanted to go out and get how, because once you've got the listing, if you've got the right pricing, it's going to sell. So we were focusing on more on those people, and we had some people in the office to sort of take calls and pass them over. But we wanted to give people the option, and we said that you can either be a lister and get paid a percentage, and I think from memory, the lister would get 20% of the fee. We've got 35% up for grabs, and 15% would go to the person that generated the sale. So some people wanted to just do listings and didn't want to deal with buyers. They don't want to be putting out buyers and doing viewings. Some people just want to deal with buyers because they're not very good at converting, and some wanted to do both. So if you listed it and you sold it, you earn 35%, but then you could share it as well.
And how has that evolved in the last 10 years?
So now we pay 40%, well, depending on which business. So in Fine & Country, it's 40% we pay. In Newmans, we pay 50%. And we now just have one role. The person that lists it deals with everything. And I wish we'd done that a long time ago. It just works out so much better. So literally one person takes responsibility, and it's better for the client. It seems obvious now that they get continuity of having one person to deal with all the way through. You can imagine, you don't want to, if you're the lister, say I was the lister, I've listed the house, done a great job, and then someone comes to do a viewing, and they turn up late, and then they don't do a very good job of pointing out what's in the house because they don't know the houses very well, and they don't ring the vendor up with some feedback, and then the owner's going to take the house off the market. That's cost me money as the agent listed it. Whereas if I do the viewings, I'm going to be there on time. I know the property very well, and I'm going to make sure I give feedback because I might want to talk about getting the price changed or change the marketing. So, and also you don't want to waste your time doing lots and lots of viewings on a house that's overpriced and miles away. You want to have a serious conversation with that owner.
Would you be recommending to people considering this is that the job of the valuer and the negotiator is, from what you've learned, is rolled into one from day one?
100%. No doubt about it. It's so much better for everyone.
Okay, so how do you cover the office if all your valuer stroke neg combined roles are all at the office? Do you have any employed staff just to cover the ranch?
Yeah, we do. We do have administrative team are employed. Again, another recent introduction is we now have people who are solely based in the office to deal with all inquiries. So so this is great for the agent. They don't have to take any calls, deal with any email inquiries, because someone in the office will deal with those calls. But we will take a percentage off that 50%. So if we book a valuation for an agent, we'll take off 5% of the fee. That comes back to the company. If we book the viewing, we take back 5%. So it's good for the agent because they think, well, I don't have to book the valuation. Someone's booking it for me. I don't have to book the viewing. Someone's booked it for me. All I've got to do is turn up and do the valuation, turn up and do the viewing. However, if the agent is proactive and he generates his own listing or market appraisal, should I say, then he does a social media marketing campaign and people contact him direct, then obviously he'll get the full 50%.
So but then if you had a bunch of lazy valuers, then they could all be sitting around waiting for your office staff to create the vals and book the viewings. Yeah,
that's true, but then they're not going to be earning as much money as they need to or want to. Obviously, the key is to find the right people. You don't want people like, I don't have to work. I enjoy working. I do it because I enjoy it. And also I want to improve someone else within it. It's like if someone's got to encourage you to do it or tell you to do it, then you're probably the wrong person to be working for yourself. You've got to be disciplined.
Did you make any mistakes, or did you have any people who were great employed agents, but when they became self-employed completely changed and were useless.
Yeah, one of the mistakes was I just assumed, and people are going to go from a comfortable salary to literally 40% or 50% of whatever they bring in. They were going to be hungry, motivated, keen to go and generate more business. And then I realized that some of these people were just the same. What happened was, although technically they were self-employed, they still had an employed mentality, which means they were saying, oh, it was bank holiday Monday, but I was working on bank holiday Monday, so I'm going to take Tuesday off. As if I'm thinking you can take as many days off as you want. You don't need to. It's just, you've got to have the right mentality. And it was very difficult for these people who have been employed for 10, 20 years to suddenly realize they could be in control of their own destiny, and some of them needed direction. And
but they don't need to tell you when they're coming into the office or not.
No. This is a great thing. I never even have to check. I don't have to check people are in at 9 o'clock or where they've gone, because if they don't sell a house, they're not going to earn any money.
I mean, how do you motivate them or manage them? Is it your job to manage? It isn't your job to manage them, is it?
No.
Where is the accountability or who are they answerable to?
So they're not answerable to anybody. What we're here is to do is to help, coach, support, motivate. So, obviously we'll have a chat and say, well, what are your goals? What are your income goals? What do you want to be earning? And why? And what do you need? They might have goals of whatever they want to buy and do and have. Some of them want to build up a property portfolio or go to Florida for a holiday next year. And then we work out how much they're going to earn or need to earn and how much they need to save. And then we're here to help them achieve those goals. So we're not here to tell them what to do, but we're here if they, to point them in the right direction and provide the support and that they need to be successful, really. But you've got to want it in the first place.
Okay, so how do you make that accountability? I mean, you must have had some great employed valuers who are completely useless. How do you motivate them? Because that must have been a huge mind shift for you from being their boss to almost being their guide and coach.
Yeah, it's a complete different. It's all about a relationship. So this is like more of a business partnership, and in any relationship, you've got to be there to support each other and help each other and give. But we're certainly not telling people what to do, but we can certainly provide the training and some inspiration and some examples of success. But you've got to, this is the key, you've got to have the right people.
But what about accountability? There must have been people that you actually dealt with where you actually said, this is not working. Is there anything in the agreement between the two of you which allows you to say, this is not working, I don't want you working under my banner anymore?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, if it's not working for them or it's not working for us, that contract can be, stopped at any time. The great thing is it's a self-policing or a self-managing process. If people aren't successful, they're not listing the houses, they're not selling the houses, they're not going to earn any money, they are going to leave. And that's the right decision for them and the right decision for us.
What mistakes did you make on that basis about motivating and making people, your associates, brokers, accountable, that you could share with the boys and girls out there in the agency land?
The key to all of this is finding the right agents with the right attitude and the right, motivation. They've got to, if they think that the things are just going to land on their lap and it's just going to be easy, then they're the wrong people. It is a different mindset. They have to be entrepreneurial. They have to be ambitious. They have to be hardworking. But it's all about finding the right agents, and that is the difficulty. And that, the lessons are, I've recruited people that aren't suitable or weren't capable of doing the things, or promised the earth and didn't deliver.
Okay. So do your partners have specific areas that they cover and no one else is allowed to trade in it? How does it work? And how does it work if someone's got a vendor that wants to buy another broker's properties? How does all that work?
Well, I don't restrict the agents into territories. I don't put any, I don't sort of give any exclusivity, is probably a better word. I don't give exclusivity to an area because I don't want to restrict. So if you divided a town up, I mean, one option is you could divide a town up into 3 or 4 different areas and say, well, you have that area, you have that area. That comes with complications, in my opinion. The only exclusivity I would, not exclusivity, the restriction I would give is that if, say, for example, an agent wanted to go and deliver a magazine to houses that are currently on the market, at the beginning of the month, if there was 400 properties that were for sale and there was 4 agents, we'd say, you deliver to those, that 100, you deliver to that 100, that, and you have that, and you have that. So they're not knocking on the same door or talking to the same owner over a period. But
so basically what you're saying is, from what you've learned, is that the only territory is basically proactive door knocking or anything like that. That needs to be chopped up. But in terms of who can list where, that's an open game.
Yes, but what I would encourage agents to do is have what I call their core area, their business development, and they literally just focus on that. So if I was living on a housing estate and there was 1,000 homes on that estate, I would make sure that everyone on that estate knew that I was an estate agent, I live on the estate. They would get a newsletter from me or a leaflet from me every single month, and I would be all over that estate. I'd have my leaflets in the chip shop, I'd be part of the local community groups on social media, but also physically, whether there's a cycling group or running group or a parent teachers association or a local church, but be part of that community. And then another agent could list a property in that area on that estate, but the chances are anyone living on that estate would say, no, I want to deal with Sean. He's local and he's near me, and I see his for sale signs everywhere, and I see his leaflets every week and his newsletters.
So what you're telling me is that you chop the town up in terms of proactive marketing.
Yes.
You suggest to your people that they proactively market themselves in that area, yet everyone else is allowed to market themselves in that area if they get a lead personally in that area. So you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, because imagine if I'm selling a house in area A and I'm dealing with lots of buyers and I've given a buyer particularly good service and they want to buy the house from me and they live in area B. They don't want to deal with the other guy. They want to deal with, they say, oh, you've looked after as a buyer. We're buying this house from you. We want you to sell our house. It would be odd if I went, oh no, I don't deal with that area. I'm going to give it, obviously if it was another town, I could refer it to another agent.
Okay.
So
let's look at the numbers in Rugby. So excluding lettings, let's just do sales. What is the makeup of your office, both admin staff that are employed and also self-employed agents? I mean, population of Rugby, bog standard East Midlands, West Midlands town must be about 30, 40,000, 50,000 people plus the villages around it. How many people are working at the Newman's office there?
Yeah, so obviously the Newman's office or Rugby office is more of a hub. So we have got more people in that support roles there. Obviously we're covering 3 other towns, Leamington and Coventry, and a few villages around. But we've actually closed our office in Coventry. We came to the end of a lease. We decided not to open it. And the only reason I haven't closed Leamington and Coventry is because I own the buildings, and therefore I'm as the landlord, I'd be losing my tenant. But if I wasn't the landlord, I probably wouldn't even have those offices. We'd have maybe a first floor office somewhere. But
go through. Okay, let's forget that you cover a number of offices. What sort of staff do you think is required for a bog standard town of 40, 50,000 people plus the associated villages around it? What could that cut? What could that deal? What could you get away with?
I would say 5 agents, 4 or 5 agents, and obviously it depends on the size of the town and how good the agents are. The problem is more of a recruitment issue, finding those good agents. But I would say, typical where you've got normally one office and one lister, I'd have one office and have 4 listers or 5 listers, and you need an administrator, and that administrator could also be the receptionist and deal with calls coming in.
Okay, and what about if that administrator needs a holiday?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. So we've at the moment, looking at this lockdown period, we've survived without the office. We're encouraging all our agents to have their mobile number on all marketing material. So that's the brochure, the window cards, the leaflets, everything, the social media. So more and more people are contacting the agent direct. They've all got a direct line, and that can be diverted to their mobile or to Moneypenny. And again, all our calls come into the office that can divert to Moneypenny as well.
Okay. What if that partner agent wants to set up on their own or leave Newman's, say, to go to another agent? Who owns the listed properties and what protects Newman's interests?
So we keep the listings, and they're free to leave, and obviously they'll be starting from scratch. The same as it is probably in an employed environment. If you leave your employer and you go to work for another one, you leave those listings behind, and they leave their pipeline behind as well.
Okay, do you think that's fair?
Well, we've helped and supported them in setting up, and we're using our brand. So yeah, you could argue that they should get a percentage of that. It depends on the circumstances. If it's exchange, they'll be paid on those, and it depends. There's a question of that pipeline and how involved they're going to be in getting it through to exchange. Because if they're not involved, then someone else has got to deal with it, and they've got to be compensated, and that sale could fall through. And
Do you expect your partners to do the sales chasing as well?
No, we do have a sales chaser, but a lot of agents do want to be involved themselves. I mean, it makes sense that you want to be involved all the way through the process, staying in contact with the buyer and seller, because when they decide to move in the future, when they recommend a friend, they're going to say, yeah, Sean rang me every day, he got our sale through, not such and such in the office who was the sales chaser.
So if you do use the services of a sales chaser, do they get a lower amount of the fee?
I think they pay something like £20 towards the sale per exchange.
Okay.
So the sales chaser is on a salary. As an extra bonus, I think she gets £40 per exchange, and the agent pays half and we pay half.
Okay, so in essence, your partner agents effectively, they do have their own mini business, but they can't sell it to anyone, can they? Could they?
I mean, it's a bit like a milkman having a milk round, or a window cleaner you could potentially see if somebody wants to take over if you've got goodwill. But the good trouble is with that is that the goodwill is the name of the agent and him. So if you're going, it's a bit like any estate agency today. You know, what is it worth? You know, if you're the business owner and you're doing all the listings, anyone who wants to buy that business will say, well, you've got to stay for 3 years or 5 years because, if you leave, the clients will leave as well.
One question that came in, which we touched on a few minutes ago, is there a formula for the number of partner agents in a town or number of chimney pots? But I mean, Rugby's say 30, 40,000, but you cover the villages. So that's a pack of around 90,000, I would say. And you're dealing with probably 5 agents plus 1 or 2 admin plus you. Does that sound fair?
Yeah. But I believe what agents should be doing now is widening their area of coverage by recruiting more agents in a far wider area. And I think that's what we're going to be doing with Newmans. I've focused more on the recruitment with Fine and Country over the last few years. But it's like a franchise. You've got a certain area. Technically, it is a license agreement, and you have an area. But once you've filled that area, there's a limit to your growth.
Okay, let's move on and talk about the tax implications of this. Now, interestingly, someone emailed me in a question saying, I'm an agent owner already and thinking about using the self-employed route for new staff, struggling to see how to get past HMRC guides if a person only works for one customer, then required to be employed. So, have you actually spoken with HMRC about your model?
Yeah, I've had 2 meetings with HMRC over the years, just to discuss purely our model to ensure that our agents are, self-employed, and they've agreed that they're self-employed and happy with that.
Yeah, keep going. So now I'm looking on there's a website, employment status on HMRC.
Yeah.
And checking if they are exempt from PAYE. Someone is probably self-employed and shouldn't be paid through PAYE if most of the following are true. They are in business for themselves and are responsible for the success and failure of their business and can make a loss or a profit. They can decide what work they do and when and where and how to. They can hire someone else to do the work. They are responsible for fixing any unsatisfactory work in their own time. Their employer agrees to a fixed price for their work and it doesn't depend on how long the job takes. And they use their own money to buy business assets covering running costs and provide tools and equipment for work. And they can work for more than one client. Notice they say, it doesn't say you only have to work. So from the sound of that, and again, none of us are tax guys, but you've said you've spoken with HMRC. It sounds like even though your brokers work under the Newmans brand, they're classified as self-employed.
Yeah, I mean, probably a good analogy is a bit like if you go to a barber's or a hairdresser's, a lot of those barbers are self-employed and they just rent a chair. So they pay that chair rent and they only work in that one barber's, and they are classed as self-employed. And maybe a lot of other people that, someone told me that 40% of the people that work for the BBC are on a self-employed contract. It's quite common.
I mean, I know there's some new rules that are coming in that have been, and this is called Rules for Off Payroll Working from April 2020. And it said that it only applies to medium and large companies, meaning it would only affect the likes of the corporates. A small one-man woman band estate agents aren't covered at the moment because the definition of a small company, because this is where the company itself has to decide whether they're PAYE or not. The turnover is of 10.2 million or less. The definition of a small company is a company that is not otherwise ineligible and must meet at least two of these three qualifying conditions. A turnover of 10.2 million or less, 5.1 million or less on its balance sheet, or 50 employees at less. I don't think there's many estate agents that fall into that category. So by the sounds of it, I know the rules could change because, as I said, if you're a medium firm, it's your responsibility to decide whether they pay tax or not. But if you're small, the responsibility is on the other person, the self-employed person. It's their responsibility. And you're telling me that you've spoken with HMRC and under your agreement, you're not coming a cropper over PAYE. Is that right?
That's right. Yep, correct.
Okay, let's move on. So that's answered that question. Let's go through some advantages and disadvantages of it. So you've got over 50 self-employed agents and 30 self-employed mortgage arrangers.
Yep.
What's been your biggest regret doing this?
Regret? I don't have any regrets doing it. What, mistakes or?
Okay. What have been your biggest mistakes or biggest learnings that you wish you knew now that you didn't know then?
As I mentioned before, recruiting the right people. Recruitment, like you're thinking, well, hang on, if it doesn't matter if they're not very good, if they don't sell any houses, I'm not going to pay them, and if they sell one house, then it's better than. The danger is that if you don't get the right people, you're just flogging a dead horse. And when I say the right people, it's got to be the right mindset and the right attitude.
What advice would you give to agents finding the right people? Because from what you're telling me, they might not necessarily be the people that are already in your business at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, there's an important question people ask me all the time is, should you have people with a previous experience of a estate agency or new to the industry? And do you know what? I don't think it really matters. It's more about if they've got the right attitude. Someone who's been doing this job for 10 years, who thinks he knows everything, probably is not the right person. Well, no, definitely is not the right person, because estate agency has changed so much in the last, I was going to say in the last year or two, but in the last few months it's changed. It's a different model. If you're not doing videos, then you're not the right person. You've got to be prepared to do videos. You've got to understand social media. You've got to understand content marketing. You've got to be part of the community. But you've got to be disciplined and motivated to get out there and create the business. This is, I guess, if I had the choice when I left, I worked for Countrywide and I wanted to earn more money, and the only way was to set up my own business. But if Countrywide or anyone else had said, stay and we'll pay you 30% of all the fees you bring in, or 40% or anything, I would have stayed. And setting up your own business is a nightmare. It's not fun. It's lots of hassle. It's lots of stress. So, to go into someone else's business where they're taking care of everything else, from the individual agent's point of view, it's a far more attractive proposition.
Okay, so you've kind of given me some advantages to the business owner. You're able to continue to recruit agents and grow and expand your business at no additional cost. If they don't bring in an income, you don't have to pay them. There's no equipment to buy, no sick pay, no holiday pay, no maternity pay, no redundancy pay, no employment tribunals, no national insurance, no pension contributions, no payroll, no HR department. But it only depends if they're a great person. That it comes down to people, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. But if they're good enough, in your business at the moment, it depends what role they're doing. If they are just going out listing properties and you're providing the leads, then you'd probably pay them a lower percentage, because obviously lead generation is a key part of this.
I mean, let's be honest, the horror stories I've heard of great valuers who are great at converting, but not very good at generating their own business. I'm sure you've come across some great valuers that are not very good at generating their own business.
And they've got to learn a new skill. They've got to learn, and generating business is, anyone can do it if you're prepared to learn and you're prepared to take action. And that could be using social media to generate, valuation leads, or other tools, as whether that's leaflet dropping or knocking on doors or whatever it is. You've got to go out there and do it. But actually, that's a fun part of the job, is meeting people and talking to people and building a relationship, and then you get to get the business of the house on the market.
Okay. The advantages to the agent: high potential earnings, flexible hours. You can offset stuff like cars and petrol. You can claim VAT back if you're VAT registered. Again, you need to speak with an accountant to see if that's worth doing. There's no company car tax. You're not micromanaged. No morning meetings. No targets. Not stuck in the office waiting for the phone to ring. But then the disadvantages are, if you don't sell any houses, you don't eat.
That's true.
I mean, I heard someone say that most agents haven't got the balls to do it because they want daddy to look after them and provide them an income. Hey, those are not my words, those are someone else's. Have you seen some great valuers that have come into you and then buggered off back to the corporates because they weren't very good at this self-employed thing?
Yes. I'm just trying to think who. There must have been, some of them have come into the industry and decided it's not for them, and then they've left. I don't know whether I have actually seen any go back to. Okay. If they haven't made it, I don't think I have. I'm trying to rack my brains now. There must have been some. I just can't think of any.
Okay. Okay, so the agreement that you have with your self-employed agents, has that been perfected over the years? Does that change?
Constantly change.
Maybe you ought to sell it.
Yeah, well, it'll be out of date in a month's time because we'll have changed it and update. We're constantly reviewing it and improving it. And we're also looking at now increasing what we pay. So we're paying 50% at the moment, but we're looking to have a scale where, if agents bring in a certain income, it goes up to 60%. If it goes up to, they bring a higher income, it goes up to 70%. So it's going to be even more attractive. And just listening to, was it Josh Teslin the other day? And he said he brought in £1 million for his business. So it's $2 million, £1 million. He earned 70%. And I want our agents to be able to achieve that sort of level.
There has to be a certain amount of trust, because obviously, they could almost sell the house themselves and pocket the money all themselves, couldn't they? How do you police that?
An employed estate agent could do that. And in any relationship, there has to be trust. And why would you want to ruin that relationship? Because you'll end up without a job and you wouldn't benefit anyone. And what would the owner think? The owner would go, this is an unscrupulous estate agent.
Okay. What about joining a redress scheme? Do they have? Is that whose responsibility to join the TPOS, the ICO, in professional indemnity, HMRC for money laundering?
Yeah.
Who does that?
So in our model, the agent joins property ombudsman scheme or a redress scheme. That's probably about £300 a year. The ICO data protection, that's about £40 a year. The agent will pay for that. Professional indemnity, we have a cover for our agents. So we cover that. And we deal with HMRC for the anti-money laundering. And again, we deal with that.
So you're just confirming that no one has to spend any particular time in the office, and then you personally think probably offices are not the way forward. And if you didn't own your own buildings, you probably wouldn't be in them now. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, definitely. Although I do know some self-employed models or agencies where they do have like floor time or duty time where an agent might have to cover an office for one day. And that's good because there's office cover, but it's also good for the agent because they're in there, generating, dealing with the calls, dealing with walk-ins, so getting potential leads. But it's also maybe a day for them to catch up with stuff and administrative stuff or making phone calls. So they might have a day in the office.
Now, earlier on, we talked about people having their own patches for prospecting, but how do you ensure that the same seller or prospect doesn't get clobbered by two separate people?
Yeah, on our CRM system, if it's a buyer, they'll have an agent's initials next to them, and they'll deal with them. And same with any listings and any prospects. There'll be someone dealing with it. Have their own data.
If I'm a valuer and one of my fellow brokers has a property which I know someone will want, do I get a share of the one that's sold because I found the buyer?
Yeah, generally we have. They'll just pass. Some of them will just pass the lead over, say, look, this person might be interested in that, or they will do a commission split. So I do leave that to them. I just don't want to be involved in that. I just say you're going to get 40%. You listed it. If you want to offer an incentive to other people in the office to split the commission, they can, and there is variations of that.
And how does that go? Are there some people that are more likely to do that in your offices than others?
I think the reality is, if you put the house on the market and you get the pricing right and you do the right marketing, and we could spend an hour on the marketing, what needs to be done, but the inquiries will come in and then they'll either call you direct or they'll call the office and you'll be passed the lead. Very rarely would I, as one agent, want to get involved in selling another agent's property. I just want to focus on getting mine sold. And if I have a buyer and I think you might be interested, I'll just pass it over to him and he'll do the same for me.
We've already took the next question. I think we've already touched upon, which is the formula for a number of property chimney pots per agent, and that's probably coming in at about 20 or 30,000 off the top of my head.
Well, to be honest, if someone was just focusing on a core area, I believe if they just focused on 2,000 or 3,000 houses, that would be more than enough. You could have plenty of business in that small area. So that'd be your core area. If someone rang you and got a house to sell outside that area, you'd obviously deal with it. But you could just deal with that small area and there'd be plenty of business for one person
there. Next question. We've already touched on this, but let's just see if there's any more. What assistance do you give to the agents, brokers?
So the agents really just focus on the 4 main dollar productive tasks, or the things that make money, which is prospecting, listing houses and doing a presentation and listing it, the selling of that property, and then negotiating offers. And I'm going to add in seeing the sale through to completion on that. So and really, as a business owner or a company, we provide everything else. So admin support, all the websites, so obviously the portals and our own website, anything, marketing material, training, admin, which I just said. So anything that they need, we've got an IT guy, we've got a graphic designer. So anything they need. And when I talked earlier about a relationship, I see my agents as my customers. So, it's not me saying you've got to do this and telling them what to do. It's the other way around. They're saying, Sean, I need this, I need that, I need the other. And now I've got to provide that for them because I want them to be successful. The better they do, the more houses they get on the market and sell, the better the company does.
You could say no, couldn't you? Because you've got to spend some of your 50 or 60%. Is almost like a council of senior brokers that come together that can persuade you to do things, like a collective voice.
I want those agents to do well. So if they're saying, if I had this, we would generate more listings, then I'll make a commercial decision. I think that's a benefit because, you know, we're in this together. We want the same, our goals are aligned. What they want and what I want is the same thing. So if they're saying, if I had some more leaflets or I've had some more marketing, or we had, then obviously there's a benefit to them and to us as a business. We want the same thing. And obviously the question about how much we can provide them, and this is an important point, you can decide how much you want to pay the agent. What split is there? And that will vary. You know, we started off at something like 30 and 35% we were giving our agents. And I know there's other companies that are offering 70% of the commission. And it's a simple trade-off. The higher commission the agent gets, the less the company can provide in support. It's just a business viability situation. So, you know, at a 50-50 level, we can provide a lot more in terms of an office and administrative and marketing. But if we have to pay out 60 or 70%, then we would be offering less. And that's just a trade-off for the business and also the agent. Where do they want to see themselves?
Okay. What happens if you have a self-employed agent who is a bad apple?
In the same way as if it was an employed agent who was a bad apple, you just get rid of them.
Okay. Surely what's stopping an agent setting up their own business?
And they could, but the proposition, we've got to make it attractive that they won't want to. And I believe that if a business owner sets up an estate agency today, and if they brought in, let's just say they brought in £200,000 into that business, by the time they paid for Rightmove and admin and rent and gas, electricity, everything else, they'll be lucky if they made, let's just say they made 60 grand profit. I mean, I don't even think they'd make that. Maybe if they brought in 300,000, they'd make 60 grand profit, but whatever the figures are. Whereas if you're under this model, not only would you earn more, if you brought in 200, you would earn 100 and potentially more with higher percentages. But when you're running your own business, you're spending half of your day or more running the business, meeting with Zoopla and Rightmove, training, recruiting, dealing with this, that, and the other. Whereas if you've got none of that hassle to deal with, you can just focus on listing and selling houses. In fact, you've got all the time you spent listing and selling houses, so you'll be more productive and, so bring in more money, and then obviously you get a higher percentage. I actually believe there's going to be a lot of us business owners out there, and value does everything. Excuse my French, I was going to fuck this, I'm just going to knock it on the head and go and just be in control of my own destiny and do the fun part of the job, just list and sell the houses, not have to deal with all this shit.
Okay. If someone does leave you, can they take their database of buyers with them?
No.
Okay. Do you think that's fair?
Well, it's like a GDPR thing, it's the business property.
But if they were switched off, they'd have all the mobile numbers in their phone anyway, wouldn't they?
In the same way an employed estate agent could leave and go to a competitor and download it all and have it on their phones. You're right. And in this day of social media, you'll have your database is your social media audience.
Of course it is. Let's come back. Do you think it's better to employ people who are not estate agents? Who are the most successful? Generally, I know you've got your golden people who are estate agents.
Yeah.
But I mean,
yeah, who would be so the ideal person for me is someone who's probably a manager of another estate agency business, who's fed up of being micromanaged and having to manage other people and being managed himself, and has fallen out of love with the job because they're not doing the best bit, which is going out, talking to the buyers, talking to the sellers, and doing that. They're dealing with complaints. They're dealing with whether that's clients or whether it's the staff. You've got head office asking for something, and you've got your staff asking something else, and you're just doing paperwork and reports and all of that sort of stuff. You're the money you should be earning, and the goalposts keep getting moved with regard to your targets, and you're thinking, I used to love this job. What happened? And those people are coming to me and they're making great agents because they're doing what they used to do. They're having to learn new skills and change with the market, but that would be probably the ideal person.
What happens when the partner broker goes on holiday?
It's a good question. So they have different arrangements. Some of them will have a buddy where they say, well, I'm going away for a week. Will you deal with my properties and clients while I'm away? And they'll buddy up. Some, and they'll, you know, maybe give them a share of the commission. I'll say, well, look, if you sell any of my houses, instead of getting 40 or 50%, I'll just give you half and we'll half it. But if I'm an agent, I'm going away for 2 weeks. You know, I sell most of my houses with as an open house. I don't book any open houses, and I do them. You know, and another guy in the office will cover the appointments if anyone wants to view. And obviously, I'm not listing while I'm away. But the benefit, I've had agents that have been away for a month, gone to Australia in December, and they've come back, and a whole number of their properties have been sold while I've been away. And obviously, different depending on the market. But you know, some of our fees are £10,000 fees, and let's just say of a finding country, they get 40%. And they might split that with 25% to them because they listed it, and they might give 15% to the guy who sold it. So they come back and say 4 of their properties have sold, and that's £2,500 for each one. They've come back and earned 10 grand, and they've been off for a month in a different country. So actually, a lot of them go away and they're doing deals on the beach. You know, the great thing now, we've got everything's on our phone. I've got access to our CRM, Rightmove, everything on my computer. So some people just, they'll take the odd call and deal with a few negotiations, get an exchange, get an offer tied up.
I'm aware of people that have left you in the last 6 or 12 months, but why would they have left? Because you're a nice bloke.
It's a good question. So it's not right for everybody. So I'm one person particularly came from a different industry and was a brand new person to the industry. We gave them all the support, all the training. They could have been successful, but they decided they want to go back to their own industry. They got, you know, a job offer, and it was a salary, and it was what they knew, and they just felt it wasn't. So it wasn't probably the model. It was more the industry, and they just wanted to go back to what they were doing. If people aren't successful, you know, they can go and do something else. I don't think anyone's left just to go to another estate agency employed model. They might go to another self-employed model that's got a higher percentage or different brand.
One thing that I've noticed you do is that you're very much out there on social media, and being someone who follows you, I know exactly what you're doing is that you're building up a personal brand that people say, shit, I want to work with that guy. That is a deliberate thing that you're doing, isn't it?
Yeah, people want to work with people they know, like, and trust. And like, you know, if they've got a choice in going to a faceless company, you know, I want people to get to know me, what I'm like as a person, what I'm like as a...
I mean, do you have to, I mean, I'm assuming that is your recruitment strategy, isn't it? If you're just a person with a 1 or 2 man band outfit, you're just saying I do self-employed agency, you're not going to attract the people, are you?
No. I mean, you've got to provide useful information to estate agents and provide training or support and give that away to people. And if they take that and use it, and they might go, actually, do you know what? Maybe I should be in that office. Well,
it's very interesting because I know I've, you know, you and I have been speaking for the last 12, 18 months, helping each other with our own, I hate it, personal brands, but it's true, is I actually say to people, you need to out Sean Newman if you want people to be attracted to you, because that's almost part of your job role, isn't it? To be an attraction agent for self-employed agents. Because I can see so many self-employed agents that are not doing that. They just almost put the for sale board in the ground saying we do self-employed agents, and then wonder why people don't be attracted to them. Because that's part of your job now, isn't it?
Yeah, you just got to connect with other estate agents in your town, let them know what you're doing, how you're doing it, and then they'll decide if that's right for them. And it's exactly the same as an estate agent would do by putting, you know, social media out for to attract potential buyers and sellers. You so that you're providing information to sellers, and at some point a seller will go, do you know what, I'm ready to sell my house, I'm going to use that guy, I keep seeing him on Facebook or LinkedIn or the leaflets or the marketing material. So it's just personal branding.
So legally, you've spoken with HMRC, and your model, even though they are only working for one person, is still classed as self-employed. People must take their own advice from that.
Yeah.
They need some form of self-employed agreement. Would a solicitor be able to sort that out for them?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
You ought to sell it. You ought
Yeah.
to sell it. I would.
I'm trying to remember where we got ours from. I'll find out. To be honest, I'm happy to share what we've got, but the problem is we change it so often, and so it's better to have your own and make sure it's up to date and check.
What are you prepared to? If someone emails you to send a copy of your agreement?
Yes.
What's email address should they send it? Should they make the title self-employed agreement? Remembering, boys and girls, is that you must take legal advice from this.
Yeah. So it's Sean, SEAN, at Newman, NEWMAN.UK.com. And yeah, just put in the subject self-employed agreement, and then I'll send our latest version.
You must take legal advice from your accountant, but by all accounts should be okay on that one, but protect yourselves. And basically what you're telling me is the tough one is the mindset of the people. That's the killer, isn't it? Because the amount of times I've seen so many people come across to the self-employed model, the amount of bosses that do it because they think they're doing it to save money, that's the wrong way, isn't it?
Yeah. You're going to be spending more money on your agents, a higher percentage. Interesting enough, I said earlier, we probably spent 25% of our income on salaries, and then we were giving away 35%, and maybe now it's 40, 50%. Where we gained is like national insurance and pension contributions is about 15% on top of salaries. And then you start adding on sick pay, maternity pay, and it's a different mindset. When people are working for themselves, generally, the right people, they work harder and longer and get better results if they've got the right mindset. Clearly, recruitment is everything. You've got to have a really thorough, strict recruitment process. And ours includes, we ask people to do a video answering a few questions because they have to know how to do video. And most of them haven't. We ask them to reply to questions via email because I want to see how quickly they reply to email, what their grammar and spelling's like, and obviously the answer to the questions, because we have to deal with a lot of email inquiries in our business. So, I would say there's probably about 8 or 10 stages to our recruitment process. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but we make it difficult to get in, and we turn away, I don't know, maybe 100 CVs to recruit one person.
Wow.
But then we get a lot of CVs, and people are completely.
I mean, are you putting stuff out on job boards and things like that, or is this all just organic stuff?
There are job adverts on Indeed and Reed and various.
Okay. Are you using such recruitment agents like Rainer Personnel and things like that to attract people, or is it all private stuff through the boards?
We have used recruitment agents, and I would, say you've got to look at all options, because recruitment is such an important thing. So do it on job boards, use recruitment agency, contact, in the same way that if I wanted listings, I would contact all the houses that are for sale in our area. If you're looking to recruit agents, why don't you contact all the agents in your area? Send them something, ring them, meet them for a coffee, talk about options.
Okay. One final word to any boss watching this thinking self-employed agencies for them, good and bad.
Yeah. So what is the good and the bad? I was just thinking, we talked about the advantages for the business owner.
Yes.
And then I started a list of what are the disadvantages.
Well, you've got paying out high commission, and for the agent, if you don't sell your houses, you don't eat, and you've got your own stuff, and there's no sick pay or anything like that.
Yeah, for the business owner, I was struggling to think of any disadvantages apart from you paying out higher commission. But if they're bringing in more and you've got more of those agents, I can't see a downside to the business owner.
Okay, I would actually say the biggest disadvantage for the owner is their total mindset change.
Yeah.
There's not many agents with your sort of mindset. I've seen a number of self-employed agents who just seen it as a way to save money, and it's failed absolutely miserably.
Yeah.
Was that really hard for you to change your mindset?
No, but I do agree with your point though. It is the business owner. It's a completely different. You are no longer a boss. You're no longer telling people what to do. You're no longer managing people. You're no longer in control. So that is a hard pill to swallow. You are more of a coach, a mentor, trainer. You're supporting these agents and you're helping them be successful. So it's a completely different model or role that the owner has got to take, the company has got to take. So it's important that the agent finds the right company to work with. But I think there's benefits for both parties, and it's got to be a win-win for both parties. That's the important thing.
Oh, cup of tea's arrived. Hey, hold on a second.
Very, very hot.
Very hot. Look at that. Thanks, Joe. There you go. We're live here. Can I say thank you for your time today, Sean? I hope that goes an awful long way to answer everyone's questions. And Sean's kindly given his email address. Please do contact Sean, but I think we've covered most of the points here. I think sometimes you've got to take your own responsibility and actually talk to your accountant, talk to HMRC, and just take responsibility. That's about it, really, mate, isn't it?
And talk to your team. It's got to be a win-win. You can't force people into this. They've got to want it, and they've got to be better off because of it. When I've changed this model, and it's constantly changing, I've always made it better for the agents.
Do you think you could have could you have some employed valuers and some self-employed valuers in the same office? Would that work, do you think?
I'm sure people do. I just couldn't. That would be a difficult argument with the HMRC when you have one person who's doing the same job in the same office and one's employed and one's self-employed. I don't know how you'd get around that, to be honest.
Well,
I'm sure it just happened. I mean, you've got to have different roles, to be honest.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time today. And I hope a lot of people got something from that. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And there's probably going to be more questions. If there are more questions, probably best to email you or me, and we could maybe do another video or shorter video because there are lots of questions. But hopefully that's helped. I just want to provide any information that's going to help the industry raise the standards. And I genuinely believe that having better paid agents who are going to be taking more ownership and responsibility, providing that better one-to-one service to clients will raise standards and raise fees, which means everyone earns a little bit more as well.
Thank you for your time today, Sean.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Take care. See you soon, Chris. Thank you.